Hi, and welcome to a video showing you some trigonometry examples of common questions that you might be asked, or types of questions that you might be asked in an assignment or in a problem-solving situation. So the first question that we have today is just a plain triangle. There are no right angles present. But if you wanted to, you try to use the law of sines and cosines with this question if you're aware of how to do that. I'm going to show you how to do it if you don't know the law of sines and cosines. The first thing you would do is to create a right angle. So there's my right angle. Right here, I created it that way. In the big triangle, I know that all angles have to add up to 180. So I had a 56 and I had a 47. So if I take 180 minus 56 minus 47, I get 77 as the size of the other angle, which is going to be needed later on. The next thing I need to do is to find another side. I need to find x. X is in this triangle over here, which is on the right-hand side. It's in that triangle. So it'd be very useful if I had either this side down here or this side here. Now the height of the triangle I can find using the left-hand triangle. If I use the triangle on the left, I can get the height of this, let's call it y, and then I can use y to help me find x. So y is the height of the triangle. It's also directly across from side 47, so it's opposite. 13 is across from the right angle, so it's my hypotenuse. And if I remember SOHCAHTOA from grade 10, opposite with hypotenuse means I have to use the sine. So the sine of 47 degrees, remember you always have to have an angle when you have the trig ratio, equals the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Whoops, 13. Now, I want y on its own. Right now it's being divided by 13, so to undo that I have to multiply by 13 on both sides. That gets rid of this. It does not touch the angle at all because the angle is contained inside the sine ratio. I can't do anything with that other than type sine 47. So now I'm going to use my calculator and go 13 times the sine of 47. And I get 9.507, so 9.5. So I can go up to my triangle now and write that in, 9.5, because we found it. And you can use that now to solve the other triangle for x. So when solving that other triangle, that second triangle, side y is still opposite the angle I'm using. X is still the hypotenuse. So again, I'm going to be using the sine ratio. This time it's 77 degrees that I'm putting in there. And I'm putting side y, which is 9.5 as the opposite, over the hypotenuse, which is x. This time I need to get x out of the bottom because I'm trying to solve for it, so I can't leave the x in the bottom. And if you remember how I got rid of the bottom, the denominator on this side, I multiplied by it. So I'm going to multiply by x on this side and multiply by x on this side, and I'm going to get rid of my denominator. So now I have x times the sine of 77. Remember, I can't split that. But in order to get x on its own, this time I'm going to have to divide by sine 77 on both sides, which leaves me with this. And if I use my calculator, 9.5 divided by the sine of 77, you get 9.74 or 9.7. And because there was no context to this question, I don't need to put a word answer. I just need to clearly indicate what my final answer is. When you're working with your calculator, remember to leave it in degree mode. If it's not in degree mode, you're going to end up with answers that are incorrect. All right, so for our next question, we've got a word problem. The diagram is partially filled in for you. From the top of a lighthouse, which is, it tells us is 240, so might as well fill it in, 240 feet tall. A boat is sighted at an angle of depression of 5 degrees. How far from the shore is the boat? Now, the key thing in this is angle of depression. An angle of depression is always measured straight out from your object. So straight out at a horizontal and looking down. So you have to remember that it's straight out and looking down. So it's that tiny angle right there that's 5 degrees. It is not this angle in here. You need to remember that angle of depression is straight out, so straight out looking down. So that's our angle that we're dealing with right there. And it's outside the triangle that we know about. You have two choices here. You can either create a new triangle here, or you can use the original triangle and figure out what the angle inside is. So you can either use this triangle or this triangle. It doesn't matter. I'm going to use this triangle to solve because I already have an angle and I have a side length which is 240 tall. So if I use that, scroll down so we've got some room. I've got an angle of 5 degrees. Across from that angle is the 240, so that's opposite. I'm looking for the length of the triangle or the base of the triangle, which is my adjacent. And opposite with adjacent, if you remember SOHCAHTOA, opposite with adjacent makes tangent. So I'm using the tan ratio with 5 degrees is opposite divided by the adjacent, which is my x. Now, if you remember from the last example, we end up multiplying by x and then dividing by the ratio. So you end up with them two things flipping places. And then you just use your calculator to go 240 divided by the tan of 5, which gives you 2743.21, so decimal 2 feet. Does that make sense? Yes, the boat should probably be quite a ways from shore if there's a lighthouse there warning them about the rocks. So that makes sense that it's quite a ways out. So the boat is 2743.2 feet away from shore. And you do need to put a sentence answer there because you started off the question with a context. Okay. Next question. A person standing on the top of a cliff. So as soon as I see that, I'm going to draw myself a cliff with a person up here above water. Sees a ship out at sea. And your ship doesn't have to be fancy. The angle of depression to the ship is 8 degrees. How far is the ship from the base of the cliff? So the cliff is 158 meters tall. Remember, angle of depression is straight out and looking down, and that's 8 degrees. So here's my triangle with 158 here, and I want to know how far away the boat is. So this is very similar to the last question we did with opposite and adjacent. So I want the tangent of 8 degrees is equal to the opposite side, which is 158, divided by the adjacent side, which is my x. So those two things are going to, I'm going to multiply by x and divide by tan. And then I'm just going to use my calculator to figure that out. So 158 divided by the tangent of 8 gives us 1124 decimal 22, so decimal 2 meters. So the ship is 1124.2 meters from the cliff base. So that is a quick introduction to basic trigonometry. It's a review. These are our review questions from grade 10. If you have any other questions, please contact me in the AC room, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.